Okay, welcome everybody to our information webinar for applicants. This presentation is meant to explain how to apply to the renewed Canadian Forest Innovation Program, specifically the Green Construction Through Wood or GC Wood program. This presentation will be given in English as per the registration information, and it'll be made available along with the recording within the next week or so on the GC Wood website. A French presentation will be delivered on August 24th, and additional presentations will be given in the fall. We encourage you to check the GC Wood website for dates and details. My name is Miranda Williamson. I am the manager of the Green Construction Through Wood program. I'm joined today here with a bunch of our team members in the background who are helping us collect the questions that will be posted in the chat, troubleshooting any sort of technical issues we may have along the way, muting and unmuting people as necessary, and those sorts of issues that we might have. I will be giving the first few slides of this presentation, and then I will turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Mohammed Mohammed. We'd like to begin by recognizing that we are all gathering from different parts of the country. We would like to extend our respect and honor to all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. We also recognize that Natural Resources Canada's building at 580 Booth is on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, whose presence here reaches back millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. As the host of this meeting, I wish to reiterate with you that the presentation portion of this meeting will be recorded. The Q&A portion of the meeting will not be recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, you may choose to leave the meeting. The recording captures audio, video, screen sharing activity, and captures the list of attendees. If you do not wish to be recorded, the recording will be made available on GC Wood's website. All recordings are subject to the Access to Information and Privacy Act. We have put in place safety measures to protect your privacy, such as disabling your microphone and camera until the Q&A session of the webinar. During the presentation, please use the chat function or reaction icons if there's any technical issues you would like to raise. During the Q&A session of the webinar, your microphone and camera will also be disabled unless you have a question. To indicate you have a question, please use the raise your hand icon under the reaction functions, and a moderator will enable you and your microphone and camera to function. Please unmute and turn on your video if you would like to. You can also ask questions in the chat to be answered by our presenters. This presentation will provide an overview of the Canadian Forest Innovation Programs, but will focus primarily on the GC Wood program. This presentation will be given in 4 parts. Firstly, we will go over the objectives of the webinar and some housekeeping rules along with an overview of the program. Secondly, we will go over the information specific to the GC Wood program stream, as well as the application and evaluation processes. Then we will provide an overview of our submission process. And lastly, this presentation will allow at least 30 minutes for a Q&A session at the end. As mentioned, this webinar presentation is being recorded and will be shared with all attendees afterwards. A presentation in both languages will be available on the GC Wood program website. Following the presentation, there will be a time for any questions you may have. You may submit a question at any time by using the chat function. My colleagues will be monitoring the chat box, and we will respond to those questions at the end during the question and answer period. We will start with the questions in the chat and then move to questions with raised hands during that Q&A session. Participants should automatically be muted. For the Q&A portion, if you have a live comment, you can use the raise your hand button and we can unmute you. The purpose of this session is to provide some additional context to the information provided in the GC Wood Applicant Guidebook and Expression of Interest application template. The objective of this webinar is to provide applicants an overview of the program, explain the application process, and give you some additional information on the project selection process. After reviewing the information available on the GC Wood website, as well as the information you will receive during this presentation, we hope potential applicants will be better prepared to submit a proposal to our program and bring forward any questions they may have. Please keep in mind, however, that the material in this presentation and the explanations are a synopsis of the information that is contained in the applicant guidebook and expression of interest form. The link to the website has been posted in the Teams chat so that it is easily accessible to everyone. So this slide has all the links that you should need to successfully complete your expression of interest. You will find the link to the online submission portal as well. As a tip, we suggest that you create an applicant profile prior to submitting an EOI. A navigation guide is available if you are experiencing any sorts of issues. So please reach out to the GC Wood program inbox for further guidance if this applies to you. You will also find the link to a downloadable Word copy of our expression of interest application form. We strongly recommend preparing your responses in a Word document offline before copying them into an online submission form. This way, you may collaborate with colleagues and collect input into the Word document, and you can paste your responses into the online submission portal once it's completed. You will notice that the expression of interest form has 3 available streams: the Green Construction Through Wood or GC Wood demonstrations, the iFit capital investment projects, and iFit studies. This presentation will cover the GC Wood stream only. However, the iFit program is another funding opportunity whose objectives are to improve environmental, social, and economic sustainability of the forest sector, develop innovative products and processes within the forest sector, and engage Canada's forest stakeholders in implementing projects. iFit provides funding to support the commercialization of innovative technologies in the forest product sector, as well as funding for studies and activities that prepare companies and markets for commercialization of new products and processes. Examples of the types of projects supported by iFit can be found on their website, which has been placed in the chat. Oops, apologies. A separate webinar series is available for the iFit program. To register for the webinars, please email the iFit program. If you would like a copy of the webinar presentation, you are welcome to reach out to the iFit program. I'm now going to turn over or pass over the mic to my colleague here, Mohammed, who will introduce himself before beginning the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Miranda, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see some familiar names attending the webinar, and we're really delighted about your interest in GC Wood program and for attending this webinar, which we hope at the end is going to help you, as Miranda mentioned, in actually getting or submitting a better, maybe more successful application. So my name is Mohammed, and I'm a senior research advisor with the Green Construction Through Wood program at NRCan. So with this part, well, Miranda did the difficult part of this presentation, so she left me with the easy one. So I hope to provide you with some additional details about the GC Wood program overview, and also about the application process and the steps and what's involved, and how maybe at the end we'll give you some tips as to how to actually develop a successful application. So many of you probably would be familiar with the Green Construction Through Wood program that was launched back in 2017 under the Pan-Canadian Framework for Clean Growth and Climate Change. At that time, back in 2017, it was launched for 5 years, and really to help and contribute to de-risking and supporting the greater adoption and commercialization of wood-based products in the construction of tall wood buildings, low-rise wood buildings, and timber bridges. And the program supported about 16 demonstration projects. This is the renewed GC Wood program, which was just launched or approved, I would say, a couple of months ago under budget 2023. But this is a climate change program, which means that the focus really is on using wood as a low carbon building material, especially in non-traditional kind of construction. So we're also focused on using bio-based systems. We're focused on kind of innovative use of wood in buildings and other infrastructure projects, innovative building technologies, for example, innovative building systems. So this is one of the criteria, as you will find, as we go through the program overview. All those efforts are really intended to help Canada achieve its net zero target by 2050. And as a climate change program, this is intended to support Canada's efforts to decarbonize the built environment. So the main goal of this program, the renewed GC Wood program, is really to encourage and increase and expand the use of wood as a low carbon building material, in the construction, especially in non-traditional construction sector, as I mentioned, which would help Canada decarbonize the construction sector. The program has been redesigned. It's not the same design as the previous GC Wood. This time it is really, the program has been approved for 3 years. We have 3 different streams, but the demonstration stream, which was launched just August 10, we are dedicating about $10.5 million in total for funding demonstration projects over the 3 years period. Now, as I mentioned, the program has been redesigned, so it's not the same as the previous version that some of you probably would be familiar with. So with the 3 years funding, the renewed GC Wood program has made a few changes. And so first, we have expanded the eligibility criteria of projects to support and advance innovation to help decarbonize the built environment. Secondly, we have revised the program's funding categories that would help us align with the GC Wood program, the renewed GC Wood program objectives. And we have introduced basically 3 targeted categories, which we will be describing and discussing in more details in the next slide. And finally, the program has transitioned in terms of logistics and the way, applicants will be submitting their applications. And this time, the program has been designed as a 2-phase approach. So phase 1 is really targeting expression of interest, very simplified application form, while the phase 2 is going to be like those who will be successful in phase 1 will proceed to phase 2 with a more detailed applications. And we are going to be using an online submission portal for the application, which is also different from the previous GC Wood. So this is just something we will be visiting again in this presentation. So in terms of GC Wood funding, let's just maybe go and do a review of the funding details of the program. So the program can fund up to 50% of the total project cost for eligible design, approval, and construction activities. Now, when we say project, we are not referring to the actual construction project that could be in hundreds of millions of dollars. The project here, the way it's defined, is really to the activity. For example, it could be the design of the project. It could be certain, construction elements, could be certain R&D. This is the reference to the project here. It's not intended to be the total cost of the project. So those has to be eligible project costs as per the guide, and you can go to the guide and see exactly what examples of eligible project activities. Those would have to fall under three categories. Schematic design, the program will fund up to $400K to support the design development of a design concept, for example. This is really intended to deal with projects that are at very early design development stage. The second category is around innovative building solutions, and this one really dealing with advanced building systems, advanced building technologies, retrofitting, for example, of existing buildings, use of prefabrication, modular, panelized, etc. Some really innovative building technologies, wood-based, I would say, building technologies. And the third category is around the bio-based use of the bio-based kind of materials with the projects, where examples of that would be, for example, wood fiber insulation in the building envelope itself, or it could be, for example, wood-based type of cladding. It could be, acoustic, bio-based acoustic mats, etc. So you could take advantage. Of course, there's no reason why you couldn't actually combine those elements together. For example, use of bio-based products and some advanced building technologies to allow you to actually maximize program funding, which we would go up to 1.4 million to support individual projects. So those, what you see here, the schematic design, innovative building solutions for wood, and advanced bio-based products, those are the three categories that the program will fund. So anything that you will propose would have to fall under those three categories. It could be a new project, or it could be a retrofit of an existing building as well. Something to keep in mind, that any project that do not fall within those three prescribed categories, they will not, or they are not considered to be eligible under this call for expression of interest. So please review the applicant guidebook section 2.3 for more details on this one. So let's talk about the application process itself. As I mentioned, the difference between this renewed GC Wood versus the older one is that we are basically adapting a two-phase approach. Phase one is really a simplified application process, expression of interest, which is open to all eligible applications or applicants via the online submission portal. If successful, you will proceed to phase two with a full project proposal, which will be open only to invited applicants. So this is something important that you need to keep in mind. Now, we talked about the online submission portal, where Miranda described that all the links that you will find in the guidebook, and you'll also find it at the GC Wood website. So applicants must submit, or applications must be submitted through the online submission portal for consideration. So you couldn't just simply submit an application through the GC Wood inbox, for example. It has to be submitted online. And another thing here is that I guess you would have to create, or we encourage you to create, an applicant profile prior to completing the EOI. Now, there's only one form the same form available for the 3 streams that we have here, which is the GC Wood demonstration stream, and then there is IFIT capital investments, and the third one is the IFIT studies. So it's the same application form that you need to fill. Now, if you are applying for more than one stream, let's say you are interested in the IFIT studies stream or the capital investments and the GC Wood project, you would have to fill separate applications. You cannot just fill one application for the 3 or the 2 of those streams. This is really important. Now, while completing the online form, you will notice that there are tips throughout the form. If you hover over the field, you'll also receive an error message if anything is not filled in as needed. So please read through the form carefully. Okay, key dates and deadlines. As I mentioned, we basically redesigned the program this time. We are going to have some kind of ongoing intake for expression of interest. We've decided to break this down into 4 windows. This was done basically after consultation with our partners, with industry, just to give you more time to allow you basically to prepare a better application. So we have window 1, which we have launched August 10. We encourage you to submit your UI by the deadline, which is the end of September this year. Now, once that window is closed, then we're going to open window 2, which deadline for submission would be December 31st, end of this year, basically. Now, and so on. So window 3 will have also a 3 months kind of window to apply. But the deadline will be March 31st, 2024, with the final window number 4. Deadline for that would be end of June 2024. Now, the first window you will notice is the shortest. Each window will have approximately 3 months, as I mentioned. However, the first window is the shortest, with just 6 weeks for intake before the September 30th closing date. So the reason for that is that the first window is really intended for projects that are kind of well scoped, that are shovel ready and ready to start within a few months after submission. So we're trying to accommodate basically all type of projects and just be more realistic. Now, if you miss window number 1, you can always apply to window number 2, and the same thing. If you miss window number 2, you're not ready for some reason, then you can always apply in window number 3. So the remaining windows 2, 3, and 4 are really intended for long-term, multi-year type of projects that are currently in development. Now, the program will process and assess proposals based on the submission date and will provide ongoing decisions as they are determined. We encourage you to submit sooner than later because proposals will be assessed in the order they are received. So UIs will be reviewed within 45 calendar days of submission. Now, I guess some of you might be asking questions. How about the funding, the 10.5 million? Are those going to be distributed equally among all windows? Well, all efforts will be made to ensure funding is distributed appropriately across all windows. This is part of the program design. But again, I want to reiterate the intake process must be done using the online submission process. So let's go through the application, I guess, stage themselves. So that starts basically with the expression of interest, be it on window 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, doesn't matter. We're talking about the high level description of the process itself. So you need to submit the UI during one of those available windows. Now, stage 2 would be the evaluation of the UIs by GC Wood team. So, you know, we're going to assess those applications against the kind of mandatory criteria and the program eligibility, the eligibility of the applicant, the eligibility of the project itself, etc. Now, applicants will be notified in stage 3. Applicants will be notified on the results of their application within 45 days, as I mentioned. In stage 4, that's actually where, if you are successful, if your application made it through the EOI process and is successful, it meets the eligibility criteria, then you will be notified about the success of your application, and then you will move to stage 4, where full project proposal will be sent to you. So a successful project will be invited for the submission of the detailed project proposal, and you will be given 60 days, basically, to complete the submission through any window. Stage 5, that's where NRCan GC team relies on external panel of experts to help review and assess the detailed project proposal. Those are like a group of multidisciplinary experts from across the country who will be assessing the project itself against a rated criteria that I'll be describing in the next slides. Stage 6, about shortlisting of those projects. So highly ranked projects will move to internal approvals for shortlisting, and they will be, issued letters. So successful applications basically will be returned through this call. Stage 7, that's where this is part of the standard process at NRCan, where we go through the due diligence process, the technical and the financial due diligence, and projects successfully passing through this process will be conditionally approved. So you receive a letter, basically a letter of conditional approval. Now, the last process, of course, is stage 8. That's where contribution agreements are negotiated with the project proponents, and once signed with the recipients, that's where the money starts flowing, and everything will be basically determined in terms of what kind of eligible activities, and everything is going to be included based on negotiations between NRCan team and the project proponents. Now, this is just a visual. It's kind of duplicating the information we already said about the application process itself. I mentioned that this is a two-phase approach process, with phase 1, expression of interest, which is open to all eligible applicants, where we encourage you to look at the applicant guidebook, read that carefully, and complete and submit an EOI. Look at we will evaluate the EOI, and then we'll get back to you, notify you whether your application has passed, is successful or not, basically. Now, if your application is successful, then it will move to phase 2. That's again where you will be sent a detailed or full project proposal. And that's where there will be a lot more work required at that stage, but it's all worth it. At the end, we didn't really want you to spend a lot of efforts in the EOI initially, but at least, once you move successfully to phase 2, it is more likely in terms of potential to have your project approved, but that has to go through the typical evaluation assessment process by the technical experts, and we'll have to follow the due diligence process, etc. I mentioned the mandatory criteria for this one, and I just want to kind of touch on this so that you know exactly what we mean by the mandatory criteria. So the application must be complete and provide enough information for proper evaluation. This is really critical. Any missing information may not actually help your case or help your application. The application must also be submitted by an eligible applicant. And if you go to section 2.31 in the guidebook, you will see a list of eligible applicants. The proposed project must also fall within the eligible projects categories, the 3 categories that I mentioned, the schematic design, basically innovative design concepts, innovative building technologies, and the use of bio-based products within that construction project. So again, please read section 2.32 in the guidebook for more information about the eligibility of projects. The proposed project also must support an eligible activity, and there are some examples in the guidebook for what constitute an eligible activity. The costs outlined in the application must also be eligible costs. Not all costs incurred, in the project are eligible under GC Wood, so you would have to be very careful in how to present and include what kind of, let's say, cost that should be included within your application. And finally, the proposed project must be located in Canada. Now, I did mention the rated criteria as well. This is intended for phase 2 or for the full project or detailed project application. Once you are successful through the EY process and you are invited to fill in a detailed project application, then this is a more detailed application form. And that's where there's a rated criteria that will be evaluated against. This is where the technical panel, the experts, are going to be looking at this, looking at your application, looking, for example, in terms of the innovation. This is one key criteria within the application itself. Basically describes the degree of the building innovation, the type of building technology, novelty of that proposed building system, or wood-based system, I should say, as demonstrated using new innovative wood or bio-based products, systems, the design concept itself, and the construction process and the methodology. Remember, we're talking here not just about new projects, we're talking about retrofitting. We're encouraging also use of prefabrication, modular, panelized type of off-site construction. Those are all part of the innovation process. Second rated criteria is the technical feasibility, which is really the degree to which the project is expected to be technically feasible and thus generate the desired outcomes. Basically, you can come up with some very, very innovative design concept. The question is, can you actually build a building using those innovative or advanced concepts? So that's the technical feasibility criteria would take care of that. Third one is around the cost effectiveness and applicability. This is really an important element for us because we would like to see more of those buildings. We're not after Ferrari type of buildings. We are after buildings that can be replicable, can be repeated elsewhere in Canada. So this element deals with, the degree to which the project can clearly demonstrate the cost effectiveness that would encourage developers, for example, and design teams to build and replicate that particular design concept or design element, and implementation plan which can be effectively repeated elsewhere in Canada. The fourth one is around the GHG mitigation. Again, this is given that the program itself is actually a climate change program. We would need to demonstrate, I guess, that how the proposed innovative design concept and advanced building technologies and how the use of bio-based products, for example, wood-based products in the building will help reduce or mitigate GHG emissions compared to typical standard, I would say, conventional buildings, concrete, steel, just the way other buildings, non-wood type of buildings are built. So you need to highlight basically the environmental benefits, GHG emission reductions associated with your design concept, with your building. The fifth one is around the business plan. That's straightforward. It's really looking at how strong your business plan in terms of financial analysis, sound budgeting, credible and complete business plan. So you need to describe that really, really well. If you have any supporting documentation to support this, please feel free to attach that to your application as well. In terms of timing, timing is important. We want to make sure that any proposed schedule for the project is realistic, and because it really deals with the project readiness. Preference will be given to applications with the most credible and defensible project schedule information that can be substantially completed by the end of the program in March 2026. Priority will be also given to projects that can be completed, advanced in a near-term horizon, meaning even prior to March 2026, let's say 2025, for example. The other rated criteria is around the value for money. The GC Wood program will provide up to 50%, as I mentioned, of the total project's eligible costs, up to a maximum of 400 for schematic design, or 1 million for innovative building technologies. However, we encourage very much, and the preference will be given to projects where requested GC Wood funding is well leveraged and/or in-kind contributions are demonstrated. And feel free to attach evidence of that within your application itself. However, I must say that projects can receive other sources of funding, provided that the total government assistance does not exceed the limits outlined in stacking provisions sections. And there's some information on that one in the guide as well. Now, number 8 is the experience and expertise of the project and the design team itself. And I say the project because that includes the developer, it includes the builder, includes all construction stakeholders involved in the project itself, not just the design team. So this describes the degree to which the project clearly demonstrates the design and construction team's experience and capability of delivering an innovative wood infrastructure, as well as access to and support from key construction stakeholders and partners. For example, when it comes to design teams, we're referring to authorities having jurisdictions and consultants and suppliers of the mass timber or the wood materials and others. The last rated criteria, is around benefits to Canadians. This is really a generic one, but we're really interested in this one because we would like the applicants to describe the direct benefits resulting from the project. We're looking at the environmental and the socioeconomic benefits associated with this projects and advantages for local communities and strategic contributions to the transformation of the Canadian forest sector. So any kind of benefits around the socioeconomic, environmental benefits, supporting local communities, try to highlight within your application. That would actually be very helpful. Okay, just a few tips, I guess, to help you develop and submit a successful proposal. We're just highlighting a few of those. I guess the first one, which is really the most important one, is that you want to make sure that the proposal clearly highlights how the project is aligned with the GC Wood program, mandatory and rated criteria. This is very, very important. Second one is your responses should be really clear, should be concise, and you should use supporting metrics where applicable. Please respect the question character limits that we have to keep information as concise as possible. The third one is really contextual information about the project, its history and metrics. You need to provide that as part of the overall proposal, but please be clear on the scope of the project that you want us to participate in and to help fund. You should ensure that all timelines are realistic for the project and they are well aligned with the program timelines. And I guess the last one is, typically a strong proposal should have sufficient technical and financial supporting information. Quality over quantity, basically, and independently validated information where possible. So although you may not know all the elements of your project, we understand that. At this point of time, you should have a solid idea of how you will achieve the project objectives, including how you will bring your product to the market. So this is really important. Missing information in the proposal can present a big challenge for reviewers, for GSUWOOD team. Please make sure that you have all the information provided in the proposal. With this, I guess I will give it back to Miranda to wrap up the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mo. Okay, I will do my one last PSA announcement here and say we really encourage you to review the applicant guide for further details, but we hope you found the webinar useful and helpful to address some of the program's requirements. And we now have some time for questions and answers. I just want to reiterate that the first funding window will be closing September 30th, as Mo mentioned. We will contact you with an EOI evaluation decision, and only invited applicants will be asked to submit a full project proposal. In the expression of interest application form, you should select the most appropriate funding mechanism, and please contact the program if you have any sort of project-specific questions.